Hi, I'm Yewleea, and this is Red Lines, a show where we cross some eponymous red lines of political speak and dive into some very uncomfortable and daring conversations. Today, we're going to be discussing Zelensky's victory plan and the world's reaction to him sharing it. Here I have with me Rick and Yuri.
Hi everyone. Hi Yewleea. How Yuri? Yuri, it's nice to meet you. I know it's like a call sign of yours, but we'll get to that later because I'm introducing myself. I'm Rick, the Ukrainian. I am from Donetsk. Um, Originally Makivka, to be precise. It's Donetsk Oblast. I lived in occupation for 4.5 years, and now I am dedicated to raise funds for Ukrainian army to get them the vehicles, the drones, electronic warfare devices, whatever is needed. I also interview people here in Ukraine, both military and civilians. I like to interview volunteers also because I think their stories are also important. And of course, I'm a friend of Yewleea for, I don't know, almost 2 years now. Uh, that's been time's flying. So, and that's basically it. Just a short addition. I also dub into English the interviews of Ukrainian journalists Volodymyr Zolkin and Dmytro Karpenko, interviews with prisoners of war, Russian prisoners of war. So if you're interested in that content, go to my channel. That's plenty of that stuff there. Thank you.
My name is Paul Smith. My call sign, of course, is Yuri. I actually ended up getting that call sign because I was preparing for this war long before the war even started. I started putting equipment in Ukraine back in 2010. And because of that, when I first joined the Legion, I was only part of the International Legion for a couple months at the very beginning, from March to the beginning of May. The guys I was with, I was actually equipping them with pouches and equipment that they weren't able to get or Ukraine had not gotten yet, which gave me the initial nickname of the Lord of War, which was a Nicolas Cage movie. Nicolas Cage plays a Ukrainian known as Yuri Olaf. So that's actually how I got the nickname Yuri.
It's a really good story.
It surprises a lot of people, especially that it sounds like it should just be my name. A lot of people are weirded out that my actual name is Paul Smith and not Yuri.
Yeah.
People are weirded out that your name is actually that of one of the most famous designers, right? They're like, wait, we thought you were Russian or Ukrainian. And then you're like, no, I'm Paul Smith. And they're like, ooh, the clothing guy. And you're like, no, not that either.
or the college in upstate New York. It actually has worked a lot for my benefit, because when you try to Google my name, you're not going to find much of me. I didn't have much of a social media footprint prior to this war. And I'm talking about even going all the way back to 2012. So they have, like, I've read on some of the pro-Russian accounts, the websites and stuff, they have absolutely wrong information about me, my origins and stuff. So it's worked out pretty well for me.
Yeah, my favorite thing is, I'm sure you know what Trek and Nazi Mark is, but I love checking it. And when I see my friends on there and the absolute, completely wrong information that Russia gets about them is like, but.
Yeah, I've actually used them. They've been a really great recruiting tool for me, because back when I had actually formed a team, I was able to go through Track and Nazi and then be like, oh, this guy's in Ukraine doing work, and they've linked his Facebook or his Instagram or whatever. Let me just send this guy a message. So I've actually recruited a couple people off of their Telegram channel and brought them into my team, and they had either served some time in my team and left or gone other places.
I love when Russians are useful.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to talk about useful Russians. However, today, I think that we should discuss something really big that happened, which is Zelensky presented his, his Ukrainian victory plan to the deputies of the Verkhovna Rada today, and subsequently also shared it with the public. Have you guys seen the plan yet?
I've seen the one that he.
Yeah, Yuri.
I've seen the interviews he did a couple days ago. I have not seen the one from yesterday. If it's the same thing, then yes.
So I'm gonna read a couple of points from there. So some of them are still are not released to the public and never will be, apparently, because it's OPSEC. But there are some that are, and they're as follows. The first point is the invitation of Ukraine into NATO. The second point is the the strengthening of defense, which is we are supposed to have better air defense, and our partners and allies that are around us that are in NATO should be helping us in taking down Russian aviation. Then we would be working on creating larger numbers of Ukrainian drones and rockets, and also in the meanwhile we should be working on the taking down of the limitations on the use of weapons on the territory of Russia. And then also, this one is really big, so bear with me. And then also, we should have access to the intelligence data from our partners, especially those as the United States and the UK. Point 3 is there should be, so this one I'm very curious about, and I'm very curious about what people think this is, because it's like the stopping of Russian attacks at the border, which means that we should have something placed on our territory that's so deterring to Russians that they would not want to come in and invade us again. Well, I'm sure that they're talking post-war environment. Then point 4 is the development of the strategically economical potential of Ukraine and the strengthening of sanctions against Russia. And then 5 is after the end of the war, Ukrainian military, this is my favorite actually because I think it's very interesting. But after the end of the war, Ukrainian military will be using their experience in order to strengthen the defense of NATO and Europe. And the USA contingent can be substituted by Ukrainian military because, let's face it, we are a lot more experienced at this point. So that's the plan. What do we think?
Who will be first?
You can go.
Let's go point by point, maybe? What do you think? Okay, so NATO invitation. Invitation is one thing, exception is totally the other thing. We've seen how long it took to invite, and it was pretty fast, guys. It was pretty fast to took Sweden. Finland was faster, but Sweden, it took 2 years to took Sweden in, a bit less than that. But anyway, the ratification should go in all the countries, but that's like the something that may happen only if US magically starts wanting to accept us, because US does not want to accept us at the moment. And we actually had some statement yesterday from someone's from presidential office of the US that US's position is still the same. Ukraine is not wanted in NATO right now. I mean, it's not what they said exactly, not like not wanted, but it's a matter of not the upcoming years or something like that. So that's the like the point one. I think those points, they go in order, right? So point 3 is possible only after point 2, and point 2 only possible after point 1. So actually the points 1 and point 2, they can be going, let's say, parallelly, but points 3 and 4, I don't think they're possible at all, and especially point 5 without the completion, or at least a partial completion of first 2 points, in my opinion. But anyway, Zelensky was pretty good explaining that plan yesterday. I listened to his address. The problem with that plan, it is, well, not the problem, but I would say probably its strong side is that this plan is very ambitious, and this plan actually shows the partners what is really required of them. Not just like before, when we did not have anything concrete. But now we're gonna have a list of things that we need. We already have kind of the big. Um, Okay, not the big, but this list is not detailed for now. But for our partners, it's going to be detailed. Some of the points will be more and more detailed in time because we kind of have the direct goals now and exact goals, and it gives the pressure, and it actually makes our partners to show their real position on whether they want Ukrainian victory or not. Because before, Ukrainian victory was something abstract, like, now we will stand with you as long as it takes. Now you cannot say that, because as much as it takes is an exact list of things, and if you don't want us to lose this war, you got to follow that list. So even though this plan is too ambitious and totally far from the real capabilities and attitude of our partners right now, it is a very good thing, and I'm really happy that that plan appeared. Accession to NATO as point one is, it seems impossible at the moment, and none of our partners is stating. Well, okay, some of the partners are, of course, all in, the members of NATO, like the Baltic states, but the biggest contributors like US, Germany, they are not willing to accept us there. Well, I'm not mentioning France, because as for France, I'm not really sure right now, and also the Britain. Britain is also part of NATO, right, guys? Yeah, as far as I'm aware. So I actually am not sure that influence of USA is not covering all of them, just like in case with the permission to strike the Russian territory deeper, because Britain wanted to kind of allow us doing that, but US persuaded them not to give us that permission. So will they be willing to accept us into NATO without yeah, without US wanting that? That's a big question. So yeah, I think that's that's not all I want to say. But as for point one, and like the general understanding of plan, this is what I have to say.
Well, to add on to that, there's a huge misconception with a lot of people, especially here in America, about how you get into NATO. It's not this thing where the countries of NATO just vote and say, hey, let's bring this country in or not. There are basic requirements that a country must adhere to, and then there's requirements in the military, political, and economical systems that are that the country needs to make changes of in order to first be able to be accepted into NATO, or brought into NATO, and then the members vote. And um, Ukraine's working on its way to getting that. Finland and Sweden had already established everything that they needed to do to get into NATO before the NATO, and then before their NATO membership. They just decided, hey, our population does not want us to join this group. And a lot of Russia's propaganda about NATO expansion, the reason why NATO is expanding eastward is because these countries and these populations want that safety against Russia. It's not like NATO was holding a gun to these countries' heads and saying, hey, you're joining our alliance if you like it or not. Unlike what Poland, the Balkans, Ukraine, Romania, Hungary had to experience back in the post World War II era.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, there are a lot of different things that Ukraine needs to accomplish in order to get into NATO. Although I do think that these requirements are very situation based. It's kind of like it depends on how much you want the country in NATO, and then some
Yeah.
requirements get dropped, some of them get adjusted. But what he was saying, he wasn't necessarily saying Ukraine in NATO. He was saying we need an invitation to NATO because we don't even have that. So there needs
Hmm.
to be like a clear on paper commitment to, hey guys, we want to see you here, without just, all of these politicians coming out and saying, yeah, Ukraine is definitely going to be in NATO. The question is when. So then issue us an invitation, right? And that invitation, and I've said this a lot when talking to Western experts, is really something that will weaken Russia psychologically, because Russia at this point sees that no one is going to give Ukraine any invitations or try to, establish any sort of like longevity with this. So that would really be a really bad problem for them. As to the strengthening of defenses and our partner countries or allies taking down Ukrainian taking down Russian missiles on approach to them, I think that can happen without NATO. I mean, that should be happening without NATO, as in like without the membership or without the invitation, because at this point, it's gotten quite ridiculous. At this point, we have missiles landing in Romania every other week.
Yeah. And I think Romania is going to be first to start doing that. They already sent some signals, so let's call it that way, that they want to change their laws to make it legally, kinda. Though nothing prevents them to start doing that. Let's call it illegally with their own forces. But yeah, sometimes it may be ridiculous in terms of laws and your. I forget the words today. Sorry, guys. But you get the point. I think.
I mean, we sort of we yeah, we do. It's okay. I think all of us are quite sick today, and everyone is. It's the season, so for the viewers there, bear with us. But so here is the thing, right? While there are so many disadvantages to the plan outside of the advantages, right? And so many things seem far fetched. There is no real alternative to this plan, or not even a real alternative. There is no alternative to a victory plan, right? Anywhere else.
Yep. Yep.
So in reality, right now, we have a choice. We can take a risk and support this plan, or we put our head into the sand, which is what we've been doing as Western nations, right, for a while, and we just wait until Russia reaches NATO countries or Russia wins. Because in reality, Ukraine needs action, and Ukraine needs action now. And it's not the time where we need to, take this and deliberate and think and maybe come up with something different. It's like we've been doing that for a while now. Something needs to happen. So what do we think are the chances that Western politicians, who have been, by the way, everyone has been so supportive of this plan. It's so interesting to me, because before I saw the plan, I thought it'd be way less aggressive, as in like way less straightforward, right? Because every Western politician came out in support of it before we even saw it. So I'm now wondering, what are the chances of them actually taking it and working with it?
Okay, Yuri, what do you think about this whole plan and maybe point 1 and 2?
I do like it. I understand with the United States reluctancy to send in. Let's go to the air defense portion of it, because we still have a near peer in China, and uh, defending Taiwan to send in tons of air defense assets. But I don't see why Europe shouldn't be upping a lot of the air defense assets that they have, because their actual peer, their greatest threat in is Russia. So it is the Russian military that Ukraine's fighting right now that they could benefit greatly from an increase in air defense capabilities from European partners. And then
Well, the
what we're
idea. Oh, sorry, you weren't. You go
no, no,
ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, all I was going to say is that the idea really is right. It's Like it would be Poland taking down missiles that are approaching Poland, or Romania taking down missiles that are approaching Romania, or Lithuania or Latvia taking down drones that are flying towards it. Like this is not offensive actions; these are defensive
Mhm.
actions, right? But that will take strain off of Ukrainian air defense quite a bit.
Yeah. And they also have more capable Western made fighters with the longer range air to air missiles that they don't even necessarily need to leave their airspace. I do remember the report of Russian missiles that were flying through Belarus, through Poland for a brief moment, and then entering into Ukraine to strike Lviv, which is my home city. So, yeah, it's a beautiful city. I actually part of the reason why I moved to Ukraine was because of Lviv. So,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah,
yeah,
leave.
they should definitely be able to do that. And it, I remember at the very beginning of the war that one missile that crashed in Poland that ended up
Mhm.
killing those two people. Um, that could have easily been intercepted by Polish military. I just think that they weren't prepared or expecting such events.
I really wonder why they were not expecting those events because they kind of know what Russia is, and they are one of the biggest supporters of how Russia calls it Russophobia. And what really surprises me is the lack of independency in the decision making uh, among our partners. I mean, closest like neighbors, like Poland, like Romania, or well, of course, Hungary probably will not be hit by any of them soon. But who knows? Belarus is being also strike with Shahid drones. Who knows? Maybe Hungary will be struck. But anyway, guys, the thing is, I really am surprised that none of them is doing something. Like they are just either waiting for a command from, like, I don't know whom, US, to let them use their own weapons that has US components. Yewleea, think about it. Like, I mean, I'm looking at your face
Yeah,
right
but
now.
it's the same as like, I mean, I'm not surprised anymore because it's kind of like Switzerland has the same thing. It's like if it's Swiss made weapons or weapons that had anything to do with Switzerland, you have to ask permission. Same with Germany. Same with every country that it's like it sounds ridiculous, but this is a pretty standard procedure. It's just we don't necessarily ever hear
But
we
like,
don't necessarily ever hear about these things because no countries are nearly as like big of an influence as the US is. So it doesn't really come up, but there was a similar situation with Germany, and that's just like part of standard procedure. And as much as I hate it and as much as I'm not happy that it exists, it is just what it is basically in the situation. It's not just the US that does that.
so right
Yeah.
now, NATO and NATO countries is kind of a paralyzed world that cannot do anything without asking permission of their partners. Like my someone is actually breaking the doors into my apartment, holding a knife, running on me, and here's the pistol lying on my table here, and here's a knife, and I'm thinking, oh my god, this is a German pistol. I probably gotta call my German partners and ask them permission to use this one.
Well, you
Maybe I
gotta.
use this knife. Oh no, knife is a US knife. It has US components, and I need to think of that. And I'm standing paralyzed without doing anything, and that dude is coming to me and started hitting me, and that's fucked up, guys. I'm sorry, but this has to change as soon as possible, and yeah,
In this metaphor,
then
you call your condo board and you ask them if you can do it because what if it damages the walls?
exactly.
But yeah, Yuri.
And that's also why, like, I like Zelensky's other additional plan is producing drones and missiles and stuff within Ukraine. And hopefully, if it's completely integrated from the ground up with Ukrainian technology, then we don't need permission to use certain things. And one thing that I know about Ukrainians over the years of working with them, I run a manufacturing company here in the United States. They're very words are hard today.
I can relate.
I can't even say that word. Excuse me?
Innovative?
Innovative. Yeah.
Innovative.
Intuitive,
Word
maybe.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, words
Yeah,
today are
exactly.
hard.
They
Yeah.
cannot even say words. But yeah, they're able to do the design and use things from very little. Like when I was in Ukraine, I lived in Ukraine from 2012 into 2013, literally only a couple weeks before uh, the protests started in Kiev over the EU and Russian deals. I'd actually come back to the United States, and I was back in the United States for about a week before my friends told me to turn on the news and see what was happening in Ukraine. And I wasn't surprised by it, but from 2013 all the way of 2014 and the beginning of 2015, I was in the United States, and then I went out to Ukraine in 2015, and I saw how they were using what little that they had to push back against the Russians in the east. And then again in 2016 is when my friends were introducing me to the people who were developing this drone technology and the droppers. They were trying to mount machine guns onto drones and stuff. So Ukraine has been really using what little resources they have to great effect, and using them in ways that you would not really expect.
I mean, we are very resourceful, and we have been coming out with a lot of like fantastic stuff to substitute for the stuff that we don't have. The issue is that with long range weapons, in order for them to have the same effect as the long range weapons we're asking for, we don't have time. Right? That would take years, and so the
Exactly.
reality is that we need those permissions. Interesting. Another interesting thing, right, is Ukraine is basically saying that, hey, we are actually willing to pay for our own defense, right? Like we're not just doing this in vain. We're not just asking like for this victory. It's not like we're not just asking for it. We are happy to pay for it. Obviously, we can't pay for it with, lump sums of money, but Ukraine offered to have Ukrainian military serve instead of the European military, and also offered to pay with oh my gosh, I am blanking on the word today. What is it? You guys, contagious. Minerals and what do you find in the ground? Like you find not minerals, but well, minerals is part of it, but it's
The resources, the
yes,
graphite, the lithium,
yeah, exactly. So
the
Ukraine is,
uranium, the metals that Ukraine has, especially out in the east, that Russia's been trying to control.
Yeah, and Ukraine is happy to share because at the end of this war, right, we're going to have a lot of qualified military. And so we can have that military serve in Europe, defending Europe, right, and defending Europe's borders. And I'm sure that a lot of this military is going to be happy to have a change of scenery after this. So it's a win-win for absolutely everyone.
Yeah, and you know what? I think this plan is what is very important is providing not only what we need from the partners, but what we also can offer them. And it's two big points. It's, as Zelensky said, trillions of dollars of the resources that could be dug in from the ground here in Ukraine, and not only. And the second thing is experienced military who can replace the U.S. military. But does U.S. want that? That's a very interesting question, because having your military everywhere is an influence. Having your components in the weapons is an influence, and actually an ability to say you cannot use that weapon, you cannot sell this weapon or that weaponry or ammunition. So I think the Zelensky's plan is actually bringing the ambition of replacing the influence of U.S. and that actually makes us totally opposite in our interests with U.S. I really wonder how it turns out in the end. Let's say in 10 years, what will we see?
Well,
What world will we see?
Well,
yeah.
I don't really agree.
I don't agree with it either, because first of all, we don't have enough military to do that. Secondly, it's help for the U.S., not like replace. No one can replace the U.S.
I know, but U.S. may not think so.
Well, no, I don't think, especially in the military circles in the United States, they see this as a fear because first and foremost, it's logistics that win wars, not soldiers. And
Hmm.
even though Ukraine has the soldiers and the manpower, it's going to require U.S. logistics to get those soldiers in other places. It does seem that Zelensky's been saying that, hey, we can help remove some of the burden with U.S. soldiers being overseas, especially in Europe, by supplementing them with that. Both Geo, Doc Wolf, he's the my medic that got injured when our Humvee got hit by that Hornet missile. He's the one, he lost his eye. He's been going around to Pendleton and the Marine bases here in Southern California and speaking to a lot of the Marines before they go out on these MEUs or they go out to do their training or going to their duty stations and stuff, talking to them about his experiences in Ukraine. I've done that a couple times as well. I've been looking into getting, since I'm prior Army, getting onto U.S. Army military bases and speaking about my experiences fighting a near peer conflict to the U.S. soldiers. And that's where I think Zelensky is meaning that there's a lot of experience that Ukraine can bring to these individuals. When a lot of people watch my combat footage, a lot of the keyboard warriors that you will find in my comment sections are former soldiers, former Marines who served post 2001, saying, "Oh well, we wouldn't do that. Where we did it, we did this way, or why are you doing it this way?" And I was like, "You've no idea what's going on there. There's only a handful of U.S. servicemen, such as myself, such as Geo, who has experienced this kind of conflict." And not to sell anybody short, that was out fighting for Ukraine
Yeah.
2014 to 2021. Um, I was out there in 2016. It's a completely night and day difference from what I was experiencing in 2016 compared to what I experienced within the first couple months of 2022.
Yeah.
Yuri, I have a question for you.
What's that?
What do you think if, let's say, if a few brigades of U.S. Army would be stationed at the same spot somewhere in on Pokrovsk direction, let's say 3 brigades, we take 3 U.S. brigades. We don't give them air support as they are used to,
Mm-hmm.
because there's basically no air support here in Ukraine. Well, there's a little of it, but still. Now let's consider putting those brigades in the conditions that our soldiers are fighting in. Considering also FPV drones that totally flooded the battlefield lately. Now, do you think those brigades would perform better than our brigades? Let's say our brigades, let's put them in the same conditions, not experienced brigades.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take the brigades that are being supplied and trained on in France, like that Anna Kievska brigade that popped up in the news a week ago, where Macron shared a footage of French military training them. Let's say a few of those brigades not against, but at the same time, a few of U.S. brigades. Who do you think will perform better?
Are we? And we're still talking that Russia's at its same technological level as it is right now.
Yes.
Unless they have the logistics tail that
Hmm.
that brigade would normally have from the United States. If it had the same logistics tail that Ukraine has, it's going to be the same experiences that Ukraine's experiencing right now, right?
Hmm.
The one thing
Hmm.
about the United States that I loved when I was serving is we had a IED factory. We were just going to drop a couple JDAMs on. Then somebody in Washington was like, "No, we're not going to drop JDAMs on this factory. It's too high profile or whatever." And so we said, "Fuck it." We drove some MICLICs. Those are the mine clearing charges. And we fired 2 of those at this compound and then just leveled this compound with, basically turning it into uh, using these MICLICs as makeshift bombs. Um, so you wouldn't be the United States Brigade wouldn't have the exact same level of um, success that, or any greater or less success that the Ukrainians are having, unless one, they get that logistics tail, they can just absolutely saturate their area with artillery fire, saying that, let's say that they can't use their air support. They have the logistics. We were welding angle iron together and manufacturing a machine gun mount for one of our Brownings because we didn't have a machine gun mount to mount the Browning in the Humvee to use it for an assault. So that's something that the United States does not really have an issue with. I was taking cannibalizing parts off of several other 50 cals to keep other 50 cals running when I was fighting in Mykolaiv region and even in Donetsk, fighting using what's little supplies that we actually had. So
Yeah,
if
and now
they do have their logistics support, then they're going to do slightly better than what Ukraine is. If they have the exact same levels of logistics that Ukraine's using, they're going to have the exact same amount of um, problems that Ukraine's having. The only real difference is the real level of training that the individual U.S. Army soldier receives, the NCOs receive, and the officers receive. That's going to kind of change how that theoretical battle would have gone using just a United States brigade instead of the Ukrainian brigade.
yeah, and now imagine Ukrainian military with all the experience they have in NATO, showing the ropes to American soldiers, but now with proper logistics, with proper air support, and with proper gear. I think Ukrainian military is going to be incredibly useful in the world for that, because we're the only military that has the actual battlefield experience at, I would say, actual battlefield experience in a war where you're either equal or disadvantaged, because Americans have battlefield experience. It's just a very different situation.
Well, Ukraine has been disadvantaged since day one, and even going back to 2014. At every turn, Ukraine has really been disadvantaged in numbers, in equipment, in authorization to use this equipment. When we were in DC a couple weeks ago, or actually, wow, it's actually been about a month ago, we were talking about how Russia is authorized to use long range missiles with US components on Ukrainian cities, but Ukraine can't use the same.
That's
And
actually exactly what Russia is doing, which is crazy. Russia is using missiles with U.S. components in them, and the U.S. is more concerned in protecting Russia and Russia's skies, and sort of like, the fear of escalation than it is about Ukrainian civilians. But I mean, we could talk about these things forever, right? But I guess like the bottom line here would be, which of these points do you think, rather, why do you think it would be to the advantage of NATO countries to approve this plan, or disapprove this plan? Like, what do you think are the positives and the negatives of this plan, and what do you think really will be the biggest like problems with this plan that would be preventing Western allies from passing it through? Does that make sense?
well, first off, the territorial integrity component of the being allowed to go into NATO. It's the same reason why Georgia back in 2008 was considering joining NATO, and then Russia came in and took parts of South Ossetia and that other region. That being already a hot war between Russia and Ukraine is one of the larger issues, because they specifically put that into the charter that you couldn't have any of these disputes ongoing at the time of being brought into NATO. And that's just, I guess, really to protect the other NATO countries from not just immediately going to war, invoking Article 5. But other than that, Ukraine's going to be an absolute huge asset to NATO. I remember when Poland and the Baltic states got accepted into NATO. Back then, I was kind of very still pro-Russian in my mindset, and I kind of liked it. and then at the same time kind of didn't, and I didn't really fully understand the implications of why these countries were joining NATO instead of staying allied to Russia. Thought it was kind of this backstab and betrayal to Russia, and then once I went to Ukraine for the first time and started learning about the horrors of the Soviet Union on these other Western, Eastern European nations, Poland, Baltics, Romania, Hungary, did I actually understand that, hey, this romanticized vision I have of what Russia was or what the Soviet Union was, completely misinterpreted on my side. So
Hmm. Okay, so my um, understanding of all this situation and possible outcomes of the victory plan, is it going to work or not? In my opinion, it all comes down to just US, unfortunately, as a biggest contributor. All the resources that our partners, except of US, have combined is unfortunately not enough to match them. And whatever US decides and whatever will they're going to have, and unfortunately, both options in the future for us is not like, I mean, the Kamala and um, Trump both will not are not actually stating, are not openly saying that they want our victory. Trump and Vance are saying that we should negotiate and give our territories to Putin. Kamala says that basically this almost the same, that Biden, her rhetoric's changed a bit, and to the side of we need to let Ukraine win. But I personally don't have much expectations and or big expectations for her or and her presidency. It seems like the whole Democratic Party were. Yeah, let's just not think of the Republican Party right now. Let's just look at the Democrat Party and the agenda and attitude for the last, look at how many years, starting with Obama. It
mhm.
was always the same, is to not let Ukraine be influenced only by US. It's also letting Russia influence Ukraine and not yeah, Yulia, want to say something?
If I may interject, yes, I mean Obama and Biden had literally the same cabinet. All of Obama's people were the people
Yeah.
are the people under Biden. So I don't I don't think that we should describe Kamala's presidency that hasn't even happened yet as the same situation as happening to the rest of the that has been happening to Democrats all along, because she's changing all of the staff. So
Okay,
that's at least a
so
different cabinet.
you think the different cabinet will not follow the agenda of two previous presidents of Democrats?
Well, I mean, realistically, the reason why people are saying it's just another term of Obama, which I hate because it's a conspiracy theory, right? But in
Hmm.
reality, they're not wrong because it's the same cabinet with the same people. Like if you look at Democratic presidents before Obama or at Republican presidents before Trump, they were different, right? Because
Yeah.
every president usually has their own sort of like agenda, their own campaign, and their own people. But this just so happened that, 8 years of Biden and 8 years of Obama, or sorry, 4 years of Biden and 8 years of Obama were literally the same advisors and people in the cabinet. So it's not that I'm saying it's going to be different. I don't want to say anything, but I can't also say that it's going to be the exact same, because it's
Hmm.
going to be a completely revamped and redone
Okay.
cabinet. And also, she's not 80, so that's a positive. That's a positive thing.
Yeah, you're right. And okay, so also I wanted to say that if I'm not mistaken, there is a president, not president, precedent in the history of NATO when a country was accepted that was occupied partially. It was Germany. Germany was occupied by Soviet Union. Half of the Germany was occupied, and it was accepted. So I think, in my opinion, all the NATO procedures and requirements is bullshit. They just need a political will to accept the country. And we've seen the fast track, how do they call that program? Fast track program or something
For
to
Fast track.
accept. Yeah, a fast track. So yeah, to accept members, it was not needed at all to accept Finland and Sweden. They did not do that. So that is just an excuse. Fast track is an excuse. Occupied territory of Ukraine is an excuse. Only thing is needed is a political will. Let's hope Kamala, if she wins, has the new attitude and that political will to actually accept Ukraine into NATO, to let Ukraine win, to really want Ukraine to win, because that's all that is needed. A few people, not even the whole, in my opinion, not even the whole U.S. Population, because 50% of U.S. Citizens, they stand with us, at least 50%, maybe even more. I mean, I know it, I feel it every day when people support us, they support my fundraisers, they support fundraisers of other pro-Ukrainian channels and Ukrainians themselves. And our army is getting so much support from the regular US citizens. Of course, a lot from US, but not enough for us to win. And that political will is what I'm really hoping that is going to appear. I am not optimistic, but I am hopeful that something will change in their attitude and their, not the US citizens, but US politicians to really start working on Ukraine's victory, not just on Ukraine's slow loss as it is happening right now. Because we're losing this war at the moment. Objectively, we we cannot stop Russians' advances right now. Zelensky may say whatever he wants there because he's not being honest too, to not bring panic or for some other reasons being, unfortunately, in populist, a populist politician at the moment. I want to be honest with you guys. We here in Ukraine, we are not being worshiping Zelensky like some people on the West do. We understand that he is not the saint, and he is making a lot of mistakes in the internal politics in Ukraine, and but we understand that he's the best option right now for us, unfortunately, with all his flaws in the internal politics, and also some of the external, but he's still very great in the external politics, and he's doing a good job. And this victory plan is what we love to see, is what Ukrainians stand after 100%. We want to be accepted to NATO. We want the production of weapons here in Ukraine be enough to defend our own territories. We want, to be trading and also maybe even just given some of the resources for the benefits of the safety, the security benefits of the NATO membership. We want to share our expertise and we want to share our military, our forces with other countries, because we are like that, guys. We want peace to be supported by our troops around the world. We don't want to invade other countries. And what Russia is doing is just the opposite. They only want to invade and want to conquer other people. So this plan is ideal for us. It represents all our wishes. And Zelensky was talking about the nuclear weapons today. Have you seen that, guys?
Yeah,
Not yet.
well, we're not. So we're not. Part of the plan is non-nuclear interference, as in like non-nuclear deterrence on our borders.
Yes, but he was talking today. He was answering to one of the questions of the journalists about his discussion of this victory plan with Trump, and he said, "Look, dude, Budapest Memorandum did not work. So we either need our nuclear weapons back, and so we can protect ourselves, or just prevent any invasion, because we're going to be a nuclear state, right? Or we need to be accepted to NATO. We are choosing NATO at the moment. So I also think, and a lot of Ukrainians think, that it's only two options for us. Either we get the nuclear weapons again, or we
Yeah, but
be accepted to NATO, and we don't need that.
the thing is, we're not going to get the nuclear weapons back, because it's like, we can talk about it as in like, oh, but that's unfair, or like, oh, but that's not right, but it's just not
No,
going
no,
to
no.
happen. First of all, second of all,
Yeah.
they're in Russia, right? And no one's going to be giving us nukes just because, oh,
No, no, no,
sorry, we
no.
screwed
Not
up.
given back. Not given back. It's like we start our own production for the facilities. In couple of decades, we will have the nuclear weapons. Guys, if we won't be accepted to NATO in the next 5 or 10 years, believe me, we will start moving to the path to produce our own nuclear weapons because we won't have other options
Well,
anymore.
yeah. Well, for now though, the option is really this victory plan, and I think it's the only option. There are no other options available on the market, so it's sort of like, I think the West. It's not that I think it's not that I think U.S. has to take it. I think the stress of this conversation, or like what we should be emphasizing, is that the US and NATO and all of our Western allies need to start thinking on how to implement this victory plan, not what they like and don't like about it, because this is the only plan that anyone has and the only chance for Ukraine to win and for the world to stay in the world order.
Yep. Because alternatives is the World War III. There's
Well, we
no
are
other alternatives.
well, we are in World War III to begin with. It's just we can either avoid casualties all over the world and win it, or we can win it or lose it with many casualties around the world. But hey, guys,
Yeah.
thank you so much for discussing this subject. I wonder if you have any conclusive words or statements. I think it's mostly addressed to Yuri. Sorry, Rick, because I think you've covered everything at this point.
Sorry.
And no, why sorry? It's good.
I mean,
And
I could have let Yuri talk more. Instead, I babbled for the last 10
No,
or
it's
15
fine. It's
minutes.
fine. I already do so much talking anyway. Like I don't even remember how many podcasts or interviews I've given over the last 2 years. It's actually been 2.5 years since the beginning of the war.
yes.
And I've been back in the United States for a little over 1 year right now, and it actually the time time here in the United States has flown by, but when I was out in Ukraine
Yeah.
for the year and a half fighting, it felt like an eternity.
Yeah.
So,
Well, so in order for time to not feel like an eternity for the rest of the world, I think we need to really, really start paying attention to what Ukraine is saying,
yeah,
because at the moment, it's not even about what Ukraine wants or Ukraine needs. At the moment, we're the battlefield of World War III, and
hmm
you don't want to become part of it.
yeah. It's
Yep.
basically down to um, the Biden administration right now authorizing the use of long range tactical weapon systems to be able to strike at Russian targets. If not, Ukraine's only real capabilities is the smaller drones to attack oil, gas, and ammunition facilities to slow down the Russian efforts. Uh, you're not going to be able to hit those airfields without those long range precision munitions the United States, Britain, and hopefully Germany will provide to Ukraine. Without those authorizations, if uh, Harris or if the Harris presidency happens, hopefully whatever advisor she has surrounding her are more keen in saying, "Hey, look, you can end this war quickly by allowing Ukraine to be able to strike these targets." If it was a 2018 Trump presidency, I I do not doubt that he would have authorized already the use of long range precision missiles to strike um, into Russia. And that's mostly because of Bolton. So, but since he's not going to be a part of the new presidency, if Trump is elected, from my understandings, he's not going to have that person be able to say, hey, this is the best way, the quickest way to end this without, having this thing flare back up in another 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be that. It's gonna be uh, the NATO countries being able to give more to Ukraine, and I know that's a broken record at this point in time. But a lot of people, you don't understand exactly what it takes to fight such an intense conflict like this. Um, I remember when I was out in Ukraine, I was in Kiev when it was first hit last year. Almost exactly a year ago when the missile strikes happened. I was in the train station when that missile hit the building down the street from the train station in Kiev, the one with the Samsung sign on the side of it. I
Mm-hmm.
remember that coming in. I heard that coming in. So uh, there there's a lot more that needs to be done for Ukraine, and a lot more restrictions lifted off of Ukraine to allow Ukraine to actually have victory instead of having this um, quagmire, bogged down conflict
Limbo.
continue on.
Limbo, really, because it's a limbo.
Mhm.
It's like, it's tug of war, really, and we don't want to be stuck in tug of war, and we don't want to be stuck in a situation where Russia actually tugs their way, because then
Mhm.
we're all.
Yep.
So
But
No,
yeah,
having
unfortunately, Russia is tagging it all along in these 2.5 years, and U.S. is giving in to those, to that
well,
attitude. Well,
so the U.S. needs
I
to, yeah,
yeah,
the U.S. needs to reconsider, and we really,
exactly.
as I said, I think the only, well, it's not, I think the only way to end this war is this victory plan. And it's not saying as in, like, being ambitious or being inspired or anything like that. We don't have any other choices, and we've had 2.5 years to work on other options and other choices. And now all of these countries are going to be taking their time and trying to come up with their own victory plans and alternate victory plans. Well, you should have done that for the past 2.5 years. There is this now, and we got to work with it. And I think that's a really good conclusion to our conversation today. Is that,
Just
and this,
quickly, may I
yeah,
say?
yeah,
So, maybe quickly. Okay, we're heading into the winter. In 2 weeks, Russia will start hitting our energetic infrastructure again. They will hit the nuclear power plants, not themselves, not the reactors, but the stations. I am 99.9% sure of that. So, guys, this we'll get through this winter. I'm optimistic. We Ukrainians can get through anything. If we won't have heat in here in the apartments, we will just do it mobile way. We will find a way. We will survive. The thing is, our soldiers, they are in much worse conditions than we are civilians. So I ask you all to continue to support our army with your donations. If you focused on something else, like recently, um, because yeah, it may happen. Please shift the focus again to Ukraine. It's important. We are in a very heavy conditions right now. Our soldiers are not Ukraine, and it's going to be heavier in winter. So please keep supporting Ukraine. Support Yulia's fundraisers. She have them. She has them all the time. Yulia, do you have any now?
not currently, because I'm traveling and I'm very bad at having time to go online. But Rick has fundraisers all the time, and they all go to various different brigades. And I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure at this point he just could be paid to be their secretary. So,
Well, yeah. So thank you everyone for supporting Ukraine, guys. And let this victory plan work. It really needs to work. Other alternative, all of the sons and daughters around the world will be dying in the World War III when it escalates by Russia and other contributors like North Korea, Iran, and China in the future. And let's not let this happen, okay? Um, Glory to all the heroes that has given their lives on the battlefield here in Ukraine for all of the Europe's and world's freedom.
glory to
That's it.
Ukraine. Well,
Glory to
thank you
heroes.
so much, guys. That
Thank
was,
you.
I think, a very big discussion, and I hope that it's not gonna fall on deaf ears.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Well, I'm sure that was educational and probably ruffled some feathers because honestly, I find that a lot of people really don't like hearing the truth and a lot of people really don't like hearing the criticism of the Western world and everything that's been going on in it. I hope that this conversation inspires you to think out of the box and think deeper about the things that are really happening in the world and how they affect all of us. And if you enjoyed this conversation and you would like to hear more conversations like it, please don't forget to subscribe to The Gaze and UATV English. Give this video a like, a hearty one, send it to a friend, and of course, leave a comment with your opinion because I read all of them and I am very interested in what you have to say. See you next time.